Following World War II, a new sociocultural expectation was elevated to become the gold standard for American civil life. What would be better known as the nuclear family was more than just an idealized version of life. It was built as direct opposition to the perceived danger of communism, and as a way to continue the enforcement of strict societal guidelines, such as Jim Crow laws restricting the rights of African Americans to exist. By the late 1960s, the civil rights movement, various labor movements, a robust anti-war movement, among others, had given rise to the counterculture movement, which directly opposed the status quo, growing from frustrations over blatant discrimination, especially in the workforce, was the gay rights movement, starting in and around the 1950s. Two of these groups included the Mattachine Society and the Daughters of Bilitis, beginning independently. Many of these early queer-led groups eventually advocated for assimilation and civility. Their aim was to show the outside world that queer people were normal, despite their sexual deviousness. Many of their protests would have their members conform to social norms of the time, men wearing suits and women wearing dresses, and displays of queer affection or identity were strictly frowned upon. In the glitz and glam of New York City, the queer community struggled to find rest from the constant threat of harassment from both everyday citizens as well as the police. Organizations like the New York branch of the Mattachine Society did very little to actually combat this kind of treatment. To live authentically in the city, queer folk were forced into often shady bars and clubs to dance, drink, and mingle in a space relatively safe from the ever-present consensual sodomy laws enforced by the police throughout the 1960s. Greenwich Village is just one of the neighborhoods of Manhattan, which was home to various bars and clubs that hosted queer people. One such club was the Stonewall Inn, located along Christopher Street. It featured 2 small dance floors, no running water, and no liquor license. Despite all that, it was very popular amongst the locals. Patrons were typically in their late teens to early 30s and white, although some Black and Hispanic individuals also frequented the club. At around 1:20 a.m. on Saturday, June 28, 1969, officers of the NYCPD announced themselves to the patrons of the Stonewall Inn.
Police!
The inn would be raided, and who was actually present at the time is contested. On one hand, being identified at the raid could lead to very real consequences in a person's life, but on the other hand, as time passed, being at the raid became a badge of honor in the community. Many of the key figures of the Stonewall raid were transgender and people of color. Marsha P. Johnson and Miss Major Griffin Gracie were both African American and trans. Sylvia Rivera was a trans Latina, and Storm DeLarvery was a butch African-American lesbian. In addition, there was a cis-white presence at the raid. Virginia Apuzzo was also a notable figure. This raid ended up being the straw that broke the camel's back. Already, things were tense, but those recounting what happened that morning say that there was something different. As visitors were forced to leave the bar, instead of returning home or fleeing to another establishment, many stuck around. Soon, the street was crowded with that night's visitors, and the commotion was starting to draw others from surrounding bars and homes. Less than an hour after the raid had started, a sizable crowd had gathered outside the bar, cheering on those giving sass to officers as they were escorted out. Finally, after a still unidentified woman who had been brutalized on the way to the police car called out to the crowd, "Why don't you guys do something?" The already very large and agitated crowd began to scuffle with police. Years of harassment and agitation had finally led to the spark necessary to light the barrel of anger it had left in its wake. For as hard as the police would push against the people they had targeted, the people pushed back. Famously, as the police formed a line to push people away from the now burning Stonewall, some queer people there locked arms and formed a dancing kick line while chanting, We are the village girls, we wear our hair in curls, we wear our dungarees above our Nelly knees, as a direct opposition to the escalation taken on by police. Demonstrators would be present in the area sporadically until July 1st, 1969. Although the Stonewall Inn raid is presented as being a riot, it is vital to remember that none of the patrons were there to protest. They were there merely to exist as who they truly were. But as it had been for decades prior, they were once again harassed, beaten, and scrutinized for their existence. And it just so happened that the morning of June 28th, upon being targeted by police for peacefully existing yet again, certain individuals had enough and demonstrated with equal respect given to them at the time. Following the Stonewall Inn raid, gay rights groups began to form, this time having no qualms about representing who they really were. These new groups would have the word gay or trans in their organization's titles and would openly demonstrate their identities to the public without shame. Some of the people who were at the Stonewall Inn raid went on to become activists and started their own organizations to help the LGBTQ+ community. Sylvia Rivera co-founded the Gay Liberation Front shortly after Stonewall. She championed a movement more inclusive of different demographics in the LGBTQ community. She became known for her "y'all better quiet down" speech when she forced her way onto the stage at a gay pride rally in 1973 and passionately advocated for including trans and other marginalized people in the movement. Marsha P. Johnson joined the Gay Liberation Front, ACT UP, and co-founded STAR with Sylvia Rivera. STAR was the first LGBTQ+ youth center in North America, and it was the first organization led by a trans woman of color. Miss Major Griffin Gracie was assaulted and one of the few arrested at Stonewall. After 5 years of incarceration, she would go on to become the executive director of the TGIJP. She eventually founded the House of GG. It was a retreat house for the trans community with a variety of educational programming. Storm DeLarverie survived the brutality of the Stonewall Inn raid and then dedicated her life to activism and to the rich history of performance arts in the community. She co-founded the Jewel Box Revue, which was North America's first racially integrated drag touring company. She worked there for 14 years. Virginia Apuzzo went to spend over 4 decades as a public servant, educator, and gay rights pioneer. She served as executive director of the National Lesbian and Gay Task Force, founded the Hudson Valley LGBTQ Community Center, and was even appointed to the highest rank achieved by a gay person in the Clinton White House, where she served as assistant to the president for management and administration.
Somewhere between 60 and 75 independent groups across the United States, maybe more now because they keep growing up overnight. And this is a unified effort on the part of somewhere between 20 and 30 organizations on the East Coast.
The first gay pride parade would take place on June 28, 1970, in honor of the Stonewall Inn raid, and by most accounts, it was a complete success, with very little in terms of counter-protesters or violence. Thousands attended what was at the time called Christopher Street Liberation Day. The march began on Christopher Street, where the bar, now a historical landmark, was located, and then ended in Central Park. Pride continues around the world every summer on June 28th.
Hi everyone, I know this was a bit of a different video, especially since I wasn't the one narrating it, but a good buddy of mine asked me to help him create this video, so I did a little bit of the research, I scripted it, and then I went ahead and made this video. It was for a separate event, so I made some tweaks here and there to upload it and show all of you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I do have another video in the works right now. It has to do with planes, so we're going back to our roots. No worries there. I don't exactly know when it'll be done entirely. I just finished with research, so I'm in the scripting stage, but once it's done, I'll get it out to you guys. If you want to see any of my other videos, it's just as easy as going to my channel and clicking one of those videos. It also really helps the channel if you like, comment, share, subscribe, do all of the YouTuber-y things. It makes it easier for me to make content for you guys, and it also grows the channel. It grows this little community that we have. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.